Okay, so in this case, we have a desktop that we have access to, and we're going to go ahead and start PSAttack. And the first thing I'm going to want to do is find some passwords. So I'm going to run git attack passwords so that we can see what commands we have available to us that will give us passwords. A lot of that comes from Inve, which acts as a relay to capture hashes between SMB and HTTPS and things like that. Really cool tool. But what we're looking for specifically here is the invoke GPP password or a get GPP password commandlet. What this does is gets the passwords that have been set through group policy. Say, for example, you wanted to define a local admin account or set up a scheduled task that uses credentials. You could do that through group policy, and we can use get GPP password to find those passwords and decrypt them. So we ran GPP password. We got a hit back for an account called Robot, and we can see its password here. And it looks like this was set up as a scheduled task or something to that effect. So the next thing I want to do is see if I could find out some more about this robot account. So we're going to use git attack to find commands that are related to Active Directory. And there's a lot of stuff here, a lot of great recon tools provided by largely by the PowerView module. Basically, a lot of ways to look at what's going on in Active Directory, find a lot of information that's out there. We want to find out specific things about a user account. So we're going to look for something that relates to users. And looks like we have what we're looking for here, a commandlet called getNetUser. And that's going to query information for a given user from the domain. So let's run getNetUser and robot. And that gets us back all of this information about the robot account. We can see how many bad logons it's had. We can see that it's a service account for stuff. One of the interesting things about this is the fact that he's a member of a group called Local Admin, which sounds really promising. But to confirm what we think this means, let's go ahead and look at the local groups on this machine. So let's run git attack, search for group. A lot of stuff comes back, but what's interesting to us is the find group. What is it? There we go. Get net local group. And what that's going to do is exactly what it sounds like. List all the current users in a specified local group. So let's take a look at how we're going to use this. So we can run git help, and that returns the help for getnet local group. Looks like we can run this against a remote computer if we wanted to, but it seems pretty basic. We just have to feed it a group name, and it should get us what we're looking for. So let's run getnet local group. We're going to pass it the group name parameter, and we're going to pass it administrators because we're interested in the local administrators group. All right, so that returns everything. Looks like we have a couple users in here, an administrator, an admin account. We have obviously the domain admins, and we have our AD group of local admin. So robot should be a local administrator on this box. So let's go ahead and restart PSAttack, this time as that robot account. Great. So we know that we have local admin on this box, or we suspect we do. So let's go ahead and look for some attacks, some ways that we can investigate further on local admin access. So there are two commands. One is invoke check local admin access that we're going to be looking at here. And the other is find local admin access. Invoke check local admin access is just going to tell us whether the instance that we're running has administrative access. Whereas find local admin access is actually going to go throughout the network and find other machines that we have local admin access on. So running invoke check local admin access does tell us that this is an administrative instance. So let's see what other computers we have admin access on. So it came back with two, Lab 7-1 and Lab 7-2. Lab 7-1 is the machine that we're on currently. Lab 7-2 is another machine in the network. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to find some administrators, some domain administrators. So I know there's a command here to find administrators, so we go ahead and do a git attack for find. And it looks like we have invoke user hunter, which is a really cool tool. It's going to find machines on the local network that have users logged in who are a member of a specific group we're looking for. So let's go ahead and look at how we're going to run invoke user hunter by using the git help command. All right, so there are a lot of parameters here. This is kind of an overwhelming amount of options. So let's go ahead and look at the examples that GitHub provides for invoke user hunter. All right, so this is a lot more straightforward. We have 8 examples of how to use it. And it looks like the first example here is going to do exactly what we want. It's going to find machines on the local domain where domain admins are logged into. It's also going to check if the current user has local admin on that box. So let's go ahead and run that. Invoke user hunter dash check access. And it came back with a hit. Looks like we have a domain admin named admin1 logged onto lab 7-2. And we do have local admin access on that box. So what we're going to want to do here is run Mimikatz against it and see if we can't get his passwords. If you're not familiar with Mimikatz, basically Mimikatz is like a Swiss Army knife of Windows credentials and tokens. It can do all sorts of stuff, but what we're mainly going to use it for, and what a lot of people use it for, is dumping credentials out of memory. So we're going to go ahead and run git-help and then invoke Mimikatz and see what's required here to run Mimikatz. Looks like we need a computer name, and then we'll pass it the dump creds parameter. So let's go ahead and do that now. We're going to pass it lab 7-2, which is the machine the domain admin's logged into, and dump creds. All right, so we got back a lot of information here. Looks like we have the hashes for the computer account, and we have the admin's password. See if we have anything else interesting here. Nope. So we have the credentials for a domain admin. Let's go ahead and make a note of that password. Let's go ahead and restart PSAttack now as a domain admin. And what I'm interested in now is getting the Active Directory database, because I don't know how much longer I have to sit at this computer. So let's go ahead and get that database so we can take it offline and get cracking. The first thing I'm going to want to do, though, is find out where a domain controller is. What's a domain controller on the network? So we're going to do git attack and then domain controller. That's going to return us a couple options here. The one we're looking for is getnet domain controller, which is just going to return us a list of domain controllers on the domain. So there's one domain controller here. We can see its FSMA roles, the IP address, what site it's in, and its host name. Next thing that we want to do is find out how we're going to actually copy the ntds.dit file. So we do git attack and copy. That returns a handful of utilities or commandlets, a lot of them dealing with volume shadow copy tools, which is pretty cool. But the one that we're interested in is invoke-ninja copy. And what that's going to do is it's really interesting. It analyzes the raw data of the volume and recreates that, parses it back into NTFS structures. So it kind of recreates the files from the raw data of the volume. This is going to help us get around file locks and stuff like that because we're kind of coming in around from the side to get to this data. So let's look at what's required to run invoke Ninja copy. So we have a couple options here. Looks like we can pass it a remote destination, a computer name, a local destination. This is a little confusing, so let's go ahead and look at what the examples are for invoke Ninja copy. It looks like the first one is going to do what we want. We're going to get the ntds.dit file from a remote server, pass it to the local server. We need a path, a computer name, and a local destination. So let's go ahead and run that. We're going to pass it the path to ntds.dit. We're going to pass it the computer name for the domain controller, which was lab 2012. And we need a local destination. So we're going to go ahead and copy it to the file or the folder that we're working out of C tools. And we're going to call it ntds.dit. Now, this is going to take a little bit to run because, it is doing some low-level disk work here, but we'll let it run. All right, let's go ahead and list out the directory, and there's our ntds.dit.